haven't done a book review, what I've read in a month, for a while. I used to do them every month, but it got a little too stressful to have to read that much and also record a video for it every month. It was too much. As you'll see when I talk about it, some months I only read like 2 books, which is very low for me, but I think it's more sustainable in the life that I currently live. We'll see how the rest of the year goes. Maybe I will read more. I think I tend to read more in the latter half of the year, but we'll see. So this is going to be a book review, what I read from January to June, so the first half of the year. I read 20 books in the first 6 months, which is not very much for me. I think last year I read like 75 or 80 books the whole year, so yeah, we're definitely slowing down, but that's okay. I just have less time and less. It was actually kind of a goal of mine to read less because it means I'm doing other things. I would just spend like full days just reading, which is fun, but also like, I should go see my friends or go work out or something, like something else. So I think it's a good sign. I think it's healthy. I didn't need to read that much. Also, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, so I used to do these videos as close whispers, close whisper videos. But I know a lot of people who watch my channel like soft spoken, so we're gonna try kind of a mix of both today. If you really liked the whispers, I love a whispered moment personally. So if you really liked the whispers, let me know. I can go back to whispers. If you like soft spoken, let me know. But mostly let me know your opinions on books, because that's what I love about these videos. I love talking to people about books. So if you're new here, I know it's been a while. I read all of my books on my Kindle. I own very, very few physical books, and I read at such a pace that buying physical copies would be untenable, just because I live in New York City and don't have that much space in my apartment. So, but I do love book sounds, so I will be tapping on other books that I have in my house to make the lovely book sounds, and then I'll put what book I'm actually talking about here, so you can keep up with what I'm talking about. So without further ado, let's get started. So I have my list of books. There's a sheet. This is also going to be a real test of my memory, because some of these, I know I only read them 3 months ago, but some of them literally could not tell you what they were about. So, especially the fantasy ones. So I read 20 books in the first 6 months of the year. 12 were fantasy, 5 were what I dubbed classics. Those are kind of older books. I think they're classics. I think they're probably in the modern canon of classics. And then 3 contemporary fiction. So I read 12 fantasy. They kind of all blend together at a certain point. So unless I really, really loved it, my memory is not very good. So we'll see if So the first book that I read in January was The Poisoned Daughter by Sheila Masterson. So this was a standalone fantasy romance, which is pretty new for me because I don't read standalone fantasy ever. I don't think I've ever read a standalone fantasy, except like Babel, I guess is a standalone fantasy. I'm trying to think, but honestly, it's very rare. I tend to like series because I think if you have interesting world building, interesting magic system, then you need multiple books for the character development. Like if the whole first book is taken up by world building, establishing your magic system, establishing your characters, it takes a couple books to get the character development that I really like. But I wanted to start the year with a standalone because I just couldn't get into a series. I tried to start the year by reading the second book of Quicksilver. I don't remember what it's called. I just couldn't get into it. I don't count it as a DNF because I read like 10 pages. But I just couldn't get into it. So I was like, let me try a standalone. I think I gave this book 3 stars. It has good character arc and good like relationship arc considering it's only one book. I liked the magic system. I think. See, this is my problem. I liked the relationships between the characters, but it didn't like blow me away in any way. I think now for a fantasy romance to really blow me away, it has to be like so completely different. Otherwise, it just kind of blends in. So, yeah, it was 3 stars, like solid, but not amazing. The next book that I read, this is one of the classics, was The Invisible Man. I just wrote The Invisible Man by The Invisible Man. I don't remember who it's by. It's famous, you can look it up. Whoever wrote The Invisible Man, that's who it's by. Yeah, so this is one of the classics I read. The classics on this list, I tend to listen to the audiobooks. I find I enjoy listening to classics more than any other type of book because I think they're fairly easy to like stop and start. Like I can listen for 15 minutes and put it down and then pick it up again, and it's easy to pick up again. And I'm never like, wow, I really want to read the next chapter of a classic. Like they're interesting and I enjoy reading them, but I'm never like gotta read it. I'm never fiending for it. So it's a good thing to listen to on my commute. And then it's also like, these are books that I want to read just as a human being on Earth. Like it's good to read some classics, I think. If that's what you're into, of course, you know, no one has to do anything. But for me personally, so I find listening to it to be a good way to integrate classics into my reading. And then also they happen to be the books that are most often you can find free versions of the audiobook, like on Spotify and stuff, just because they're old, so no one really cares if like you're recording it, or like there'll be LibriVox recordings which are free. Anywho, The Invisible Man is, well, what I thought would be a tale of a man slowly losing his grip on humanity because he is invisible. And I thought it was going to be kind of a commentary on like how being being unseen, going unseen in society can like really strip someone of their humanity, and just really seeing another person is like so important. But what this book was really about was kind of, he started off as an asshole. Like, I don't know why, but he started off as an asshole, then he became invisible, he continued to be an asshole, and then I'm not gonna spoil the ending, but yeah. That's pretty much what the book is about. So yeah, I think it was like a 3-star. I think most of the time I rate classics really high, because like who am I to judge? Like these amazing works of fiction, and usually I really enjoy them. This one I was like, I think I could have done without reading it. Maybe I'm missing something. I must be missing something very like vital and important about this book, but from a, I guess, surface level lens, that's what I got out of it. So those were the only 2 books I read in January. Then in February, I read Martyr by Kaveh Akbar. I actually do have the physical copy of this. I don't know where it is. Anyway, I do have the physical I did read the physical copy of this because I got this book for Christmas. This was a fascinating book about an Iranian young queer man who struggles with addiction and ends up going to New York to meet an Iranian artist. And the author is a poet, which you can definitely tell in the prose. It reads like poetry. It also, like, every chapter is from a different person's perspective. So like him or his mom, or like an ancient storybook character. I will say there was a lot of like Iranian culture and history that I just don't know, which was kind of a bummer. Like, it's one of those books that really made me want to learn all of this stuff so that I could understand it better. There's a lot of allusions to like this great epic poem that I assume must be incredibly famous and culturally relevant in Iran, but I just did not have the context for it. I also just didn't have the context for like the revolution, or like the way that the US was involved in Iran's history, like things that I probably should know and I just don't. So I wish I had known more of that going into this book, but that being said, I still really, really enjoyed it, even without that additional context. I will say, like I said, it does read like poetry, so if you want a book that has like a concrete plot, like start, middle, and end, this isn't really for you. The ending is kind of amorphous, like it could be this or it could be that. It's kind of up to interpretation, so yeah, this is not that, but it is a beautiful work of just lovely prose. The next book was Echo Fort by Caroline Peckham. This was the second book in the Neverkeep series. These are the same people who wrote Zodiac Academy. And I must say, these books definitely have more plot than Zodiac Academy. Zodiac Academy, why I stopped reading them after like 7 books or something. I probably should have stopped sooner, but I stopped reading Zodiac Academy because it was clear the authors had a beginning and an end, and then they had to fill the rest of the book with just nonsense. Like, nothing happened. I think this is only a trilogy, or maybe it'll be 4 books or something, but I think clearly it's better thought out. Like, just more stuff happens. I like all the characters in it. There's a kick-ass sky witch, which I love a witch character, who's like out for vengeance. Love that. I think when you have books with multiple POVs, sometimes it can get annoying because you just like don't care about some of the POVs, but I think this book or this series does a good job in that, like, I care about all of them. So yeah, I'm excited to read the 3rd one. I know it came out. I haven't read it yet. It's on my TBR. I think this whole series is like 3 stars, 3.5 stars. Not like deeply obsessed, but yeah, it's pretty good. The next book, so those were all the books for February. In March, I read 4 books in March. The first one was one of the contemporary fiction books, which is The God of the Woods by Liz Moore. I read this book because one of my best friends was raving about it. Like, she doesn't read that much, but she read this in one sitting. So I was like, okay, it's probably good then. It is about a summer camp. So it goes between the past and the present at this summer camp. And in the past and the present, actually, a child goes missing. And so it's kind of a mystery in that you're like putting together what happened in the past and how it connects to what is currently happening. Again, it's like a multi-POV. It digs into like kind of class tensions in this community between the people who own the summer camp and the people who work at the summer camp. But it's good. It's like if you kind of want a sort of a murder mystery, but not quite, and still have like interesting characters and character development and such. It's that kind of book. So again, I gave this book 3 stars. I wasn't as voracious as my friend, but it was good. I enjoyed it, and I would recommend it. But yeah, I didn't read it in one sitting. It didn't blow my mind. Okay, this next book I blame for some of my reading slump this year. I read Alchemised by Senlin Yu. This book, y'all. This is another standalone fantasy. This book broke me, guys. This book broke me. First of all, it's like 3,000 pages. It is so long. And the problem with reading on the Kindle is that I can't tell how long things are. So I'll start reading it and then I'll be like, oh wow, this is a long book. Yeah, it's 1,000,000 pages. And it's a standalone, so I get it. You have to fit in a lot of stuff. But this book is like relentless. That's how I would describe it. So it's about a war. And, well, it starts with a woman wakes up from kind of like cryogenesis and realizes she lost the war. and so but you can't remember anything. So the first half of the book is what happens to this woman after she wakes up from cryogenesis, and then the second half of the book is going back and filling in the blanks of her memory for how she got there. And it's relentless. The first half of the book, like the awful things that happen to this woman and the things that are described. Also, the magic system is, what's it called when you can raise things from the dead. Okay, I literally had to Google it. It's called necromancy. I don't know why I could not remember that word. Anyway, the magic system is based on necromancy, and it takes place during a war, and you can imagine just the absolute horrors that ensue. So, you get through the first half of the book, you go through all of those horrors, and then you have to go through the second half of the book, which is during the war. So it's just like horrors after horrors after horrors, and it doesn't end. It just keeps going forever. I did like the fact that because it's so long, you see the evolution of this relationship. It is enemies to lovers, and sometimes I think that gets rushed. Like, this is like true enemies to lovers, like enemies on the other side of a war to lovers. So that, I think if it was rushed, it wouldn't feel very believable. And I think sometimes that happens with enemies to lovers, where it's a little bit rushed, and I'm like, you guys weren't enemies. Like, you thought they were hot immediately. So, I did appreciate that it is real enemies to lovers, but that's why the book is so long. It's because you need that build up to understand how this relationship gets there, and then in between all that, it's just like horrors. So yeah, I finished this book and like stared at a wall for a really long time. And like I was talking to my friend, I saw it in a bookstore, and I was like, oh god, that book. And she was like, well, would you recommend it? And I was like, would I recommend it? I don't know. Because I did like it. I think I rated it quite highly. But it's definitely not for everyone. And I don't even know if it was for me. And then, to top it all off, I get on Goodreads to say I finished. And one of the first comments says, this is a Hermione and Malfoy fanfiction. And I was like, are you kidding me? Did I just read 3,000 pages of a Hermione and Draco Malfoy fanfiction? So it turns out, yes, it is that. It is different enough that I did not know. Also, I never read Harry Potter, so sorry. But there are parts of it that make a lot more sense now that I know that. A lot of the time while I was reading it, I was like, is this a sequel? Like, did I miss a prequel somewhere? Because there's a lot of stuff that just goes unexplained, like how people know each other. How did we get here? Like, what's going on? It wasn't that bad that I didn't know what was going on or didn't enjoy it, but it was like, wait, am I missing something? So that answered a lot of my questions. The fact that it was, in fact, a fanfiction. That was a lot of words to say. I have no idea. No idea. Continuing on. The next book was Dawn of the North by Demi Winters. This is the third book in the Road of Bones series, which I've talked about before when I read the first and second books. I really like this series. It is based on Vikings. It is fantasy, romance, but I would say more fantasy, less romance. It is based on Vikings, but there's magic, obviously, and there are two sisters, and it's very refreshing finding a fantasy romance that is so different, where you don't immediately know what's going to happen. This is one of those books where, like, I remember it because I really enjoyed it, and it's different enough that I can remember it. So I highly recommend the Road of Bone series. I can't really say anything about the book itself because it is the third book, so anything would be spoilers, but did really enjoy it. I think I gave it 4 stars. I think I've given every book in this series 4 stars so far. I don't know how many books are left in the series. The next book and last book in March was another classic. It was Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. This is one of those books that is incredibly delightful to read, just in its style, and like, I just love the way she writes. But immediately after, I could not tell you what it was about. Like, there's not really a plot. Someone on Goodreads said that this book was like a baggage carousel at the airport. Like, you're just kind of on this carousel and you like don't know who's gonna pick you up, or like who's back. Like, I think that's a great analogy because you're just kind of like hopping from person to person, from story to story, and it's just like, it's really delightfully written. It reminded me of, in my family, every Christmas we read A Child's Christmas in Wales, and it had that same kind of style to it, where you're like hopping from kind of little story to little story, and obviously there are still like sad parts, but yeah, I thought it was very delightful, and like, I could not tell you how this book ended. Like, I remember the parts that I loved. Like, I loved the like carriage where everyone's convinced it's the queen, or like the king, or the queen's daughter, or whatever. I loved that part, but like, I could not tell you how it ended. So that was it for March. In April, the first book I read was called Daggermouth by H.M. Wolfe. This was one of those books that really took book talk by storm. Everyone was talking about it, so I was like, might as well. It's only the first book in the series. It is about an assassin who lives in like the bad part of town, and the basically the son and heir of like the president of the good part of town, and they end up, through whatever circumstances, having to get married. I don't remember particularly loving this or hating it. I think it was a solid like 3-star read. Yeah, I mean, I'll probably read the sequel when it comes out. I did read it really fast, like it was easy to get through. But yeah, it's nothing like crazy new, I don't think. The next book I read in April was Souls in Ruin by Jacqueline White. And this, again, was the first book in a series, and the only book out so far in the series. So I tried to stop doing that because that was 2 books in a row that I couldn't continue the series. This one I read because honestly I wanted like just a little kind of smutty little book, you know? I was like, just give me something kind of like easy and smutty. That's not what this was. It is smutty, it is not easy. Or like not at all. First of all, there's a lot of like plot development and character development that happens before you get to the smutty parts. It's also just like very like check your trigger warnings, I guess. Very dark, romance-esque. But it is interesting. It is, I think, slightly unique in that like I can remember what happened because it was kind of unique. So it's about a princess who ends up marrying a god, and she ends up in prison with a different god. Yeah, and that's pretty much the whole book. It's just her in prison. So I will probably read the next book in the series. But yeah, if you're looking for like a smutty little good time, this is not it. I think I rated this one 3 stars on Goodreads, but I would probably give it like 3.75, 3.5. The next book was Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. Really a tonal shift there. So this is one of the classics that I was listening to. What an absolutely delightful book. I know that it's definitely for 10-year-olds, but I never read it as a 10-year-old, so I started reading it now, and I think that's allowed. But the Greta Gerwig Little Women movie is like one of my comfort movies. I watch it all the time. I love it so much, and I had never read the book, so I read the book, and it's absolutely delightful. It's like I want to read that to my kid one day. Highly recommend. Just super sweet and darling. It's a bit preachy. There's a lot of stuff about like God and whatever in there, but I mean, what can you do? It was of the time, so yeah, very, very sweet little book. And we're gonna go to a big tonal shift again and do the next 4 books that I read at the end of April and through May were Reign of Shadows and Endings by Melissa K. Roerich, and the 3 next books in the series, which are Storm of Secrets and Sorrow, Tempest of Wrath and Vengeance, and Dawn of Chaos and Fury. I literally had to read a summary of this before filming this video because I could not remember what it was about. And I only read it 2 months ago, and I read an entire series, but I literally could not remember what it was about. But it's, I mean, clearly I liked it enough to continue reading it. So it is about a society where demigods kind of rule the world, and they use fae as their like magic sources essentially. So a girl gets chosen to be the magic source for this demigod, and plot ensues. This is a why choose, which I didn't know when I picked it up. I'm not a why choose girly. I think it's a bit odd. think I prefer like jealousy and like really like, I don't know, like true love, as ridiculous as that sounds, but that sort of stuff. I think why I choose freaks me out a little bit. So yeah, but again, like a little bit of a smutty good time, but also 4 books worth of like plot and character building and relationship building and all of that. So, and I read all 4 books, so clearly it can't have been that bad. I think I gave the whole series 3 stars. Like just a solid romantic fantasy, but nothing crazy. And the last book in May was The Idiot by Fyodor Dostoevsky. This book is the only book that I DNF'd this year. I said it in my chat with me if you watched that, but I don't like to DNF books very often. What I will do is I'll read like the first 10 pages, and then if I don't vibe with it, I'll stop. But this one I got like 2/3 of the way through. And the problem was I was listening to it on Spotify, then it like got taken off of Spotify, so then I had to get it from the library, and I was just not listening to it fast enough, and it kept getting taken away, and eventually I was like, actually I don't even want to listen to it. I already gave kind of a review in the chat with me video, but basically there's way too many characters in this book and not enough plot. There's a million characters, they all have a million names. Like, I do not understand Russian names. Why does everyone have like 6 names? And I'm supposed to understand where this comes from? Like, how am I supposed to know this name means that person who has a completely different name? Like, it's all through context, and this book just had a million characters, so, and none of whom seemed to be particularly relevant because there was no plot. So I was just like completely lost in the sauce, and then I had to keep pausing because the library kept taking my book back. So eventually I just stopped reading it because I was over it. Yeah, I would tell you the plot, but there isn't really one. It is quite funny. There were lots of times where I like laughed out loud. But yeah, I got like 2/3 of the way through and had to quit. Okay, we are into June. The first book that I read in June was The Will of the Many by James Islington. This is a fantasy book set in a Roman society. It is quite an interesting magic system where people cede their will to other people who are higher than them on the pyramid, which basically means like other people can use their power or like use your strength for them, but then everyone is in a pyramid, so everyone is ceding their will to someone else. A little complicated, but very interesting. And the main character is the prince of a nation who has been conquered by the Roman Empire, basically. And we follow his journey through an academy where he's learning he's trying to like make his way up through this academy. It was good. It was very different. I think it definitely sets itself apart as a fantasy book that's different, that has different plot. I didn't end up continuing the series. I probably will. It didn't like immediately grab me to read the next book, but it does have a very interesting ending, like something funky is going on, so. But yeah, I think I gave it 4 stars. I read another fantasy series that was kind of Roman inspired last year that I quite liked. I think they're kind of evenly tied. I was gonna say I like this one better, but I don't think that's true. I think they're kind of evenly tied. So yeah, that was good. And then I read The Bee Sting by Paul Murray. This is one of the other contemporary fiction books. Wait, what was the other? Oh yeah, okay. It was Martyr. God of the Woods. The Bee Sting. Okay, yeah. So this is the 3rd contemporary fiction book. It's by Paul Murray. It follows a family in Ireland. Again, it's from multiple points of view, and again, it kind of jumps around in time. I will say this book took me a long time to read. It's quite long, which I didn't realize at the beginning. And then there are parts where I had to put it down. There's some parts where a character gets assaulted in every sense of the word, and I had to put it down because it was just it was a lot. So it did take me a while to read. There is also a chapter from the point of view of the mother of this family that has no punctuation, no periods, no commas, nothing, which is just really hard to read. So it took me a while to get through her chapter as well because it was just very hard to parse, which I understand what he was doing with that effect, the effect he was going for, but it was still difficult to read. But all in all, I did like it. I did enjoy it. I think I gave it 3.5 stars. But yeah, definitely a little bit difficult to read for more than one reason. The penultimate book for the first 6 months was Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. So after I DNF'd The Idiot, I was like, I gotta try again. I gotta try Dostoevsky again, and it turns out that was a good idea because I loved this book. There's way more plot, way fewer characters. Everyone still has 8 names, but you can put it together fairly quickly who each person is. And it is about a man, Rodion Raskolnikov. See, this is what I mean. So throughout the whole book, he's called Raskolnikov, and then sometimes he's called Rodion Romanovich. And I'm like, and I'm just supposed to know that refers to that person. At least they kind of all start with R, but then there's some people who have completely different names. So I'm like, where did this come from? Anyway, the main character, Raskolnikov, commits a crime, hence the name, and then the rest of the book is kind of his internal struggle, internal and external. He also deals with other characters, and the ramifications of this crime. I really liked it. I thought there was a lot less just random than the idiots. Yeah, I enjoyed this a lot more. And then finally, the last book of June was actually a reread. It was When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. This I read last year, but the sequel came out this year, and everyone on Book Talk was saying that it's super, super amazing. So I was like, I don't remember anything about the first book. I should probably reread it to refresh my memory so that I can thoroughly enjoy the second book. So I'm reading the second book now. It's okay. It's not like amazing. Everyone said it was amazing, so I'm hoping it picks up. But I remembered really liking the first book, and I agree with that on the second time around. I think it's very unique. I think the prose is lovely. The world building is awesome. Like, there's clearly so much thought put into the world building, which I really appreciate, because I think sometimes with romantic fantasy, there's way more thought and effort put into the romance than the fantasy, than the world building. But there's a lot of world building, and the concept is just really good. It's not that like cookie cutter romantasy formula, which I appreciate. So yes, I am liking this. I think I rated it 4 stars when I first read it. I rate it 4 stars now. So really enjoying the series so far. Okay, how we doing, everybody? Are you guys asleep yet? Are you asleep yet? That was all 20 books that I read in the first 6 months of the year. If you have read any of them, let me know your opinions. If you agree, disagree, or if you have any book recommendations for me, let me know. Let me know what you are reading now. I love talking to people about books. So if you like what you are currently reading, let me know. Maybe I'll pick it up. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this little rambly book talking session.